If you've ever wondered what it really means to build meaningful relationships, to reinvent yourself in different seasons of life, or to continue growing, exploring, and contributing long after others expect you to slow down, this episode is for you. Because today's conversation is a beautiful reminder that success isn't just about titles, achievement, or status. It's about connection, curiosity, wisdom, and the courage to continue evolving through every stage of life. But first, if you're someone who wants to strengthen your communications, build more authentic relationships, and connect with people in a way that feels genuine instead of transactional, I'd love to invite you to check out the Brand Success Hub. The Hub was created for entrepreneurs, professionals, leaders, speakers, and purpose driven individuals who want practical support in clarifying their message, building confidence, creating stronger connections, and communicating with more clarity, confidence, compassion. Inside, you'll find live trainings, AI powered communication strategies, leadership insights, visibility support, and mini trainings from incredible experts and guests like the one joining us today. You can learn more about the Brand Success Hub at 30secondsuccess.com/hub. Now, let's jump into today's conversation. Today's guest is Margye Solomon, longtime advocate for professional women, relationship builder and entrepreneur and lifelong connector, and a dear, dear friend of mine. Margye spent years supporting and empowering women through organizations like 85 Broads, the Elevate Network, and today she continues to inspire others through her work, her adventures, and her unique perspective on relationships, communication, and reinvention. And what I love about Margye is that she doesn't define herself by titles anymore. She defines herself by experience, connection, and living fully. Margye, welcome. Thank you so much for joining me today. Share a little bit about your life's perspective with our audience.
Oh my gosh, Laura, I am so happy to be here, and it is just a pleasure. Thank you so much for asking me. Life experience. I live by the creed of living my 100-year life to the fullest. It's a book that I read many, many years ago, and it talks about those of us who are born in different generations and how long we're expected to live. And now I'm kind of an outlier on that 100-year life. Mostly those who are expected to live 100 years are born in the 60s and 70s, and of course on from there. So I'm a little bit on the outside of that, but I made the decision that I am going to live fully all the life that I have. And so I just set the goal, 100 years. I am going to live till I'm 100, which gives me a couple of decades to play with between now and then.
Beautiful. I love it. And you've always had such energy and enthusiasm for the what's next. And I love that about your personality. You and I met years ago at an Elevate Network event in Center City, Philadelphia. And my favorite thing that I remember the first time I met you was your Chucks, your Chuck Taylors. This woman is amazing. She can dress in the most beautiful of bling, and she's always got her Chuck Taylor sneakers on. You've always stood out to me as somebody who follows her own path, and if there's not a path to follow, there's one that you're going to make. So I love that about you. And, so how has your perspective changed over time when it comes to work and purpose and identity? What have the years taught you?
Well, gosh, a lot. At this stage of my life, I am, and actually, let me back up. It started way back when I was in my 50s, and I got summarily laid off during the recession, the Great Recession of 2007, 8, 9. And from a job that I had been in for 12 years, a corporate role, that quite frankly, I was very good at, and thought, I'll just retire from this company. Well, during the recession, they went in and took out everybody that was making a lot of money, everybody who was older. So I was at an age I was fully vested. So, I'd been with the company longer than 10 years and I was over 50. And so I woke up one morning and I had no job. I lived in a town that I didn't know. And I suddenly went, who am I? What am I going to do? And that started the rest of my life.
Mm.
So when I talk about this and reinvention and moving forward and being excited about what's going on, I did go through probably six months or so of trying to figure out what I was going to do. Couldn't find a job. I mean, it was bad. And then I just found my purpose, and my purpose was to advocate for women, to talk about how to live your best life. And, whether it's in work or home or whatever, and do that by making connections with other women and other men as well. But, it was all pretty much focused on women and advocating for them. So did I answer that right? That's kind of how I got started on all of this.
No, and I love that. And you talk about the evolution, right? Because I think some of that is what led you to how we met through Elevate Women, because you were part of 85 Broads before then. And I
I
think
was.
that you made such an impact on the people around you by being both part of both of those organizations, which is beautiful. And I think that's where that purpose comes in that you talk about, and really being purposeful in how, once you know what your purpose is, right? Then being purposeful in living that. And I think that's so beautiful.
Yeah, and it's when I talk to women, and currently I'm mentoring professional women or one of them at the 92nd Street Y, and it's a whole program that they have for professional women that lasts a year. And so I'm one of the mentors for this cohort. And it's really interesting because when I speak to women, entrepreneurs or professional women, about belonging to organizations or going to an event, right, to make connections. And I wrote an article several years ago, may have been after, I'm sure it was after you and I met, about not using the word network as a verb. And I've gotten in a lot of trouble because people who do that for a living, they call it networking. And so I told him, I said, let's talk about making connections, because that word, using the word network as a verb, the word networking is transactional. Mm-hmm. And it does not bring into account making a connection, starting a relationship, and going into a room at an event with one thing in mind: how can I help the women that are here, or the people that are here? What can I bring to this that would be helpful, as opposed to walking in and saying, oh my God, I have to make this many, I have to meet this many people, and I have to sell something while I'm here, or I have to get them to do this, or I have to get them. No, it is not the way to make a connection, to build a network, to build that group of women that you that are going to be with you. And when I was at the first meeting for the 92nd Street Y with the mentors and the mentees, and the mentors all sat at tables. They did kind of this speed dating thing, because the mentees were trying to decide who they wanted to have as their mentor. And so we'd sit at this table, and I was clearly the oldest one in the room and not still working, in corporate or whatever. And they would, to a woman, they would sit there, and we're talking doctors, lawyers, heads of organizations. I mean, these, I said at one point, I said, I think my IQ just dropped about 50 points, with all these women at the table. And they kept asking, well, have you ever mentored anyone before? And I'm just sitting there just laughing.
Yes.
Yeah. Yes, I have.
Yeah, just a few. That's all. Just a few.
Yeah, one or two.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, I love this. And you know what? This is one of the things that we talk about all the time is having that heart of service changes how you walk into a room, how you connect with people. And you certainly are someone who believes in the art of serving others and putting others first. And that's where I think relationships really begin to build, because that's where that trust level really comes in. So, you've talked about retention requires relationship. So why is that such an important distinction?
So an analogy I used to use all the time is that you go to the hairdresser, right? You get your hair done, right? Or your nails or whatever. Have you ever gone in and to a new salon, new hairdresser, highly recommended, right? And you go in and they do a decent job with your hair, but you didn't connect. It was just transactional. And so you kept looking. You never went back. Retention requires relationship. That hairdresser didn't understand that. It was just transactional for her. You're there. She says, well, what, or he says, what do you want done? They do it. How did I do? Great. Thank you. I pay. Goodbye. And that's what happens in when you make connections and when you meet people. If you don't connect, if you don't start this relationship, you're not going to be friends. It's not, you're not coming back to anything, right? When I call and I say, oh, you want to get together for some coffee? I'd really like to continue this conversation. I mean it. I'm not, and I'm not going to sit down with you. You and I met outside of Elevate. I'm not going to sit down with you and say, well, I'd really like you to come do this for me, or I want you to buy this, or, yada, yada, yada. You're just learning about that person and what they do and what's happening with them. So, I mean, that's relationship. There is no retention with that relationship. And it doesn't matter what it is. When you go to the grocery store, if you don't feel that connection with the people in that store and, what you're doing, you're not going back. You're going to go to a different store. It's as simple as that.
Well, that's why I kept coming back to Elevate. So there is that. No, and you're right. It absolutely is right about the relationship. Like you and I have known each other for years now. And, we've, on again, off again, there's been changes in both of our lives. And yet the minute we get on a phone call or on a Zoom call with one another, it's like, hey, it's like we just saw each other yesterday. And I think that's where it's such a beautiful opportunity when you do connect with people, that you're going to connect with them in different seasons of your life. You're going to, have different directions and different likes and periods of your life where you may separate for a little bit, but when you come back to one another, it's like an old friend has, just reappeared in front of you and you get to catch up. So I love what you're saying about the relationship and how important that is. And I think it's important to choose who you grow those relationships with, because sometimes we don't connect with everybody in the room.
No.
So how is it that you identify someone that is somebody that you really want to learn more about, to possibly build a relationship with? How do you identify the people that you really want to bring into your inner circle? Because that's what we're talking about.
Well, first of all, I talk to them, and sometimes, I'll only connect with one or two people, at an event, which is absolutely fine with me. I'll meet a lot of people. Sometimes I will meet someone that I don't get to talk to one-on-one. So I will go back to them before I leave and just say, can we connect? Because we didn't get a chance to talk. And I'm really interested in whatever, this part of the conversation that I overheard, or, what you said on stage, or whatever. It doesn't matter. But so if there's somebody that I don't get to, that I really want to, then I will make sure to tap them on the shoulder and say, can we connect? Do you mind if I call you or email you or text you outside of this? And usually people say, oh no, because I really, we sort of missed.
I think that's so powerful, and and purposeful. And that's one of the things I love teaching my clients, is to make sure that when you are showing up at an event, that you find someone that you're interested in learning more about, schedule the next conversation, right? Get it
Yeah.
on your calendar. And I think that's so powerful. That's something that I learned years ago. I might have learned it from you. Who knows? So, but I think that's the experience, right? Just pull out your phone and schedule the time. And I think that's so important. You've shared something really powerful with me, and that was that every person deserves to be addressed individually. So how do how do you go about really helping people understand that and why that matters?
Gosh,
Mhm.
some things, and some things it's hard to teach. Um, which is why I'm not a coach. I'm just a mentor or a teacher. But it's every person, every individual that you come across is important. Every human being is important. Actually, we were talking about animals earlier. I do the same thing with animals. I have a couple of great stories at it from Yellowstone, where I was talking to bears, but that's a whole other thing. But anyway, very individually, from my car, by the way, not, face to face. Yeah,
Safely.
safely have interacting with the bear. But with people, and I think as human beings, we need that individualized connection. I'm working in a pickleball club right now, part-time, just because I started playing and it's fun. And I'm in member services, but oh my gosh, member service. That's right.
Gee,
And
that doesn't fit, does it?
I'm doing a survey right now, and I talked to the GM of the club, and I said, I'm going to send out this survey from my email individually, and I'm going to follow up individually. And they were like, yeah, but there's like, I don't know, 1,000 members. And I said, yeah, it's going to take a minute, but I feel like we're going to get a much better response, and a much more honest response when the survey's all done, you click and you do the survey. But when I'm sending it, it comes from my email, it has their name on it.
Right.
And, um, We're because we want people to know that we care about them. Excuse me, their health, their play, their, everything. And it's a community. So community is made up of individuals. And you're not going to build a community without addressing the individuals that make up that community.
Beautiful. I love that. If this conversation is resonating with you, make sure you like, subscribe, and share the podcast with someone who may need this reminder today. Because in a world filled with automation, speed, and surface level communication, people are craving genuine connection more than ever. And conversations like this remind us that relationships still matter. So, Margye, you joked that aging not so gracefully has made you wiser. So, what do you mean by that?
Well, I'm not a very graceful person. And I know this because, I fell and crushed my elbow 2 years ago. And I wanted to age, there were women who just age beautifully and gracefully, and they're just wonderful. And I'm just like, bouncing around and doing different things. And, to me, it's not graceful. To me, it's, and I'm not trying to stay young. I'm embracing every stage, age, moment, right? But it's not terribly graceful. It's like, okay, I'm going to go do this, or I'm going to live here. I'm going to do that. And so, yeah, I'm just not doing it gracefully. And, and then of course there's my checks and my bourbon. And, that's, I don't know,
that all comes into play. And I think, I think there's also beauty in the grace that you're embracing, and, the not so graceful that you're embracing, because you're living life to the fullest and not worrying about their perspective that other people are seeing it from. And I think that's one of the biggest things that we miss. I'm aging as well. So I think, once you get past 50, you really start thinking about it. It's like, who cares what other people think about? Right. It's let me do what I want to do. And so let's talk about that. How does wisdom change the way we communicate? How, our perspective on life?
Well, first of all, I don't really care what other people think.
I don't think you ever have you?
No, not really. Not really. When I was young, I think it was in high school once, and somebody came to me and said, "Oh, there's this like rumor going around about you," and I was like, "What rumor?" And then, because I spent my entire high school on stage in theater, and so in community theater and in school and all that kind of stuff, and I was like, "People are talking about me? Why?" I mean, no, I'm not popular. Why are they talking about me? But it was such a surprise to me that somebody would actually talk about me. So yeah, no, I just don't pay any attention. I don't, and I don't even realize it. Somebody comes back and say, "Oh yeah, we were just talking about you." I said, "Why?" It's like, okay, but I forgot the question.
Yeah, I think it was really about how wisdom has helped has helped you to be a better communicator.
It makes you forget. It's like,
You forget all the stuff that doesn't matter.
Yeah,
I love it.
But it allows you to be who you are, to find who you are. And I think that's the most important thing, is when you understand who who you are, how you want to live. I I talk to people all the time who's like, well, I have to plan this, I have to plan that, and I have to plan, and I plan things. I'm very, I've planned events and I've done all this kind of stuff. But I think if you over plan your life, you miss a whole lot of stuff because, well, I've got this plan. I'm going to do this, and that. But what's in between all that plan? And you're just going to miss things. And so, if I want to travel, I'll plan a trip, right? I mean, I spent 25 years in the travel business, but I don't sit around going, okay, so in 2027, I'm going to do this. And a lot of people call that goal setting. And there's nothing wrong with goal setting, but if you focus too much on this big goal, you're going to miss a whole lot of life. So, I'm not saying that it's a bad thing. I'm just saying that as I've aged, I have found that if I am not living in the moment, I'm going to miss something. And that's the thing I hate the worst, is missing something. I don't want to miss something.
You don't want to miss anything, any moment.
No. And it just comes up, it's like, this happens. I leave myself open.
I love that. You're talking about not missing out on anything. One of the things that when I do a lot of work with clients who are very goal oriented, because, when they're business, you want to make sure your business is going the right way.
Yes.
One of the biggest things that I find that they do not do is they don't stop in the moment to celebrate all the things that they've accomplished. They're still, because there's all these steps that you take to get where you're going. You should be celebrating each one of those steps to get there. And we forget that all the things that we've accomplished along the way are worthy of celebration.
Yeah. Oh, I celebrate everything.
I know you do.
I got up this morning. It's like, let's go take a walk. Let's, it's like, oh, that was the best walk. A lot of coaches and people teach gratitude, and I absolutely believe in having gratitude and just thanking everybody for little things, just being grateful for a gorgeous day. I live out in the suburbs, sort of in a pastoral area in New York. And, I get up in the morning and it's like, I'll see a fox or a deer or some deer or rabbits, not quite the size of animals that I was used to in Wyoming, but I'm always grateful to see them, and I'll get out and I'll tell my significant other, I'll say, I saw a fox this morning. Is that just the coolest thing? It's like, so yeah, celebrate everything. I celebrate everything.
I love it. So one of the things that you've shared with me was something that I think is incredibly powerful. You said, change your words to change your world. What does that mean to you?
We go back to talk about what I wrote about the word networking. And I gave a talk at 92nd Street Y about this, about changing your words, changing your vocabulary. It changes your mindset. It actually, Norman Vincent Peale, I think, was the one who wrote about this, and a psychologist also wrote. I found it in Psychology Today. But it is, vocabulary, words are powerful. And if you change the words that you use and your language, it changes the way you think. And this is been proven, and it's scientific. So when I was talking about using network as a verb, it makes it strikes fear in everybody's heart. They think, oh, it puts all kinds of pressure on you. But if you think about walking into a room to make connections, to make a friend, it changes your entire perspective, calms your heart rate. It's like, oh yeah, I love going to events. Whereas before it's like, oh, I have to go. But if you think about it differently, and you say, and I say to you, Laura, oh my gosh, I got invited to go to this event next week. I'm so excited because I'm going to make some connections. I'm going to make some new friends. Isn't that great? And the friend of mine here in New York who invited me, she was like, yeah, let's go. And she came to my seminar on changing the word, not using the word network as a verb. So she's like, now she's all excited about going to. And I said, yeah, I'll be your wing woman, because she has an active PR business. But anyway, so that's what I mean about that. And when you are having discussions with people, think about how you communicate and think about the language that you use. I always try to use positive language as opposed to negative, and frame things in a positive way, even when they're distasteful, to me at least.
No, I love that. I love that, the reframe really does make a difference. So, Margye, this has been wonderful. I really appreciate you spending the time with us today. And before we wrap up, I'd love to give you the opportunity to share something directly with our audience, something that, whether it's a final thought of encouragement, a resource, a community, whatever you feel would benefit the people that are going to be listening to the 30-Second Success podcast.
Well, and I have been a fan of yours since day one in 30-Second Success and your book. And actually, we did your book launch together at an Elevate event. I found the pictures the other day. So I would highly recommend Laura and 30-Second Success. Absolutely, absolutely. She is fabulous. She is wonderful. And I'm not saying that just because we're friends, but I am saying that because I have actually lived this, and I think I even wrote a review on 30-Second Success that's in the book. So
yes, you did.
I wholly believe and love Laura and 30-Second Success. The other piece is that just remember that retention requires relationship. Be a friend. Be good to other people. But most of all, be good to yourself. Learn who you are. Take time for yourself. Understand that when it all comes down to it, it's you, it's what you give. Give to get to give.
Give to get to give. There's the nugget. I love it. Thank you so much, Margye. Margye, one thing I really appreciate about this conversation is the reminder that meaningful connection isn't built through perfect scripts or polished introductions. It's built through curiosity, presence, listening, and treating people like individuals instead of opportunities. And honestly, I think that something our world desperately needs more of right now. So this conversation also reminds us that growth doesn't stop with age, purpose doesn't expire, and reinvention is always available to us when we stay open to learning, connecting, and living fully. So thank you so much for being with us. I appreciate you. Tell our audience how to connect with you.
I'm on LinkedIn. So it's Margye, MargyeSolomon on LinkedIn.
Yeah.
You can reach me there.
That is the easiest way to connect with Margye. And that's where she said yes to being here with us today. So thank you again for joining me, Margye. I appreciate you so much. So if today's conversation reminded you to slow down, listen more intentionally, build deeper relationships, and communicate with greater authenticity, then I hope you'll carry that into your conversations this week. Because people may forget titles, they may forget accomplishments, but they rarely forget how someone made them feel. And if you're ready to strengthen your communication, clarify your message, build confidence in your voice, and create more meaningful relationships in business and life, I'd love to invite you to join us inside the Brand Success Hub. The hub was designed for entrepreneurs, professionals, leaders, and communicators who are ready to stop overthinking their message and start creating deeper connection through clarity, confidence, and compassion. And inside, you'll find practical tools, training, communication strategies, leadership insights, and conversations that help you grow both personally and professionally. You can learn more at 30secondsuccess.com/hub. And yes, Margye has agreed to share some of her amazing insights on growing relationships, not just networking. So, and before you go, don't forget to subscribe, leave a review, and share this episode with someone who needs the reminder that relationships still matter. Until next time, stand in your brand, trust your voice, and remember, success is just 30 seconds away.